Hello, Africa and the world at large. I am excited to again welcome you to Take the Lead on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal, a youthful platform that initiates intriguing discussions about young people in Africa. My name is Augustine Kali, your host. Last week, we discussed early marriage, an obstacle to harnessing girls' potential. This week's episode, it's about public speaking. Public speaking, also known as oratory, involves delivering speeches to live audiences on a wide range of topics. This practice has deep historical roots, with ancient Chinese philosopher Confucius being a significant figure in its study. Confucius emphasized the transformative power of words, believing that speeches could profoundly impact individuals and inspire actions that change the world. Today, public speaking remains an essential skill across various fields, including government, business, and advocacy. The discipline has evolved with technological advancements, now incorporating video conferences, multimedia presentations, and other innovative communication methods. With further ado, let's seize some moments to listen to little Nana Ama Aponsa, an emerging public speaker who displayed his speaking skills at the 2024 West African Music and Arts Festival held in Ghana.
Dear elders, to the center of the world, welcome to the vibrant heart of West Africa, where rhythms echo through ancient baobab trees and colors dance upon the canvas of our dreams. Today, we gather here not merely as spectators, but as participants in a symphony of existence. Listen closely as the instruments themselves speak. Behold the stanzas, guardians of our parties, the whisper tales of ancestry, and drawing memories into the very fabric of our being. Each beat resonates with the spirit of warriors, the rhythm of our culture, and the call to dance. So, let the music swell, the canvases roll, and may our hearts beat in unison. For today, we celebrate the magic of West Africa. Akwaba to Hishi, Akwaba to our rich land, Akwaba to our rhythm. Thank you.
That was little Nana Ama Aponsa, an emerging public speaker speaking at the 2024 West African Music and Arts Festival held in Ghana.
This is Take the Lead on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM, Dakar.
Let's now recognize our panelists for today. Our first panelist is Chinedu Afuama from Nigeria, president of a 500-member non-profit organization of Nigerian graduates. He earned a bachelor's degree in quantitative surveying from the Federal University of Technology, Imo State, Nigeria. The second panelist is Fatima Jaju from the Gambia. Fatima is a renowned award-winning SGBV advocate, women's rights activist, committed to positively impacting the rights of women and girls in the Gambia for the past 6 years. She is a final year development studies student at the University of the Gambia. Next, it's Wiata Rosemary Makiva from Liberia, alternatively known as Sase MC. Wiata is the CEO of Excellence Media, providing marketing, promotion, event hosting, and presenters scouting services. She is also a multi-award winning radio and TV talk show host, involved with training young aspiring presenters, nurturing the growth of the media industry in the country. Wiata acquired a Bachelor of Arts degree in Mass Communication from the African Methodist Episcopal University in Monrovia. And we also have Smart Taki Nixon from Ghana, the corporate manager for Cambridge Center of Excellence, Ghana's leading training institution in the study of project management. Smart is also public relations practitioner, public speaker, creative writer, youth advocate, and corporate MC. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program.
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys to discuss this topic that I really find fascinating and dedicated to. So it's a pleasure.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be in the midst of course, other dynamic young people across the continent for West Africa.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to add my voice to the conversation of public speaking.
Thank you, Augustine, and it's great to be here to also meet and hear from new people.
Let's commence the discussion with each of you sharing your perspective of public speaking. And we begin with you, Chinedu.
Well, so whenever I do look at public speaking, I think of it from a place of that anything that has ever been accomplished, regardless of however minuscule or huge, has something to do with public speaking. It's about communication. It's about selling an idea. It's about selling a cause. It's about selling a thought or a concept. So when I look at public speaking, I think of it as a driving mechanism for anything that has ever been and will ever be achieved in society. So it's a really interesting topic, and it's a really interesting concept to delve into.
Thank you. What's about you, Fatima?
Public speaking is a very important concept in our society in general, and I think it helps us address a lot of issues in terms of how it allows us to communicate to others and also express our own views in terms of sending messages. Most importantly to me as an advocate, because when you're an advocate, it is public speaking in most cases that helps you to better send your message very clearly and to reach the number of people you want to reach in different spaces. So to me, it is very important in that aspect, but generally for the fact that it is able to help us also express our thought in different spaces and also connect with other people in terms of the realities, in terms of our concepts, our beliefs, and anything related to society in general.
Good points so far. We're taking and I'll reach out to you guys. We'll follow up, but let's hear from the other two panelists. Wiatan, please share with us your own personal perspective about public speaking.
As for me, I just summarize public speaking as a confidence booster because it takes a lot of confidence to be able to execute public speech. So I take that as a confidence booster. It also helps you to be persuasive because most of the time when you are out doing a public speech or something like that, one of the key ingredients of what you're doing is you're trying to be persuasive. You're trying to persuade your audience to either follow what you're saying or to adjust to your concepts of the topic. So I see it as a confidence booster in total.
Confidence booster in total. All right. Smart?
Well, I would say for the past years of lecturing on public speaking, I would like a lot of people to understand that public speaking is an art, in the sense that a lot of people have what they want to say, especially to the public or whatever group they engage with. But not everyone knows how to say it in a way to generate response and also to have a call to action. Public speaking should be a way of communicating for people to, one, understand and also get them to act on what you have said. So I see it as an art in the sense that a lot of people around us, whatever we do every single day, they have what they want to say, but the struggle is always about how to say it, especially to a group of people, for them to act on what they have to share.
What do you mean that public speaking is an act? Would you mind clarifying further for the listening public?
Public speaking is an art primarily because when you take a look at public speaking, there are certain do's and don'ts, and there are certain key techniques you need to observe. The basics of it, if you get the basics wrong, it will be very difficult to even send your message across. For all the panelists that are on this platform today, I believe strongly that in all of our communities and our countries, there are certain things a person cannot do. Whenever I teach public speaking, I let them understand that the art comes first before the communication follows. One is breaking the word speak into an acronym, letting people understand that the S refers to the setting the setting where you are matters. It's very important. If I am speaking to royals, I would know how to go about it. If I'm speaking to doctors, I know how to go about it. So if you're in the midst of people in the hospital, you know the language to use. If you find yourself in the palace, you know the language to use. You find yourself in a nursery school, you know the language to use. So if you miss the setting, you might be communicating, but people will not be receiving your message at the end of the day. The P refers to the person or the people that you're talking to. So you find yourself in a place and maybe you see yourself as a PhD holder. You're talking to youthful students and you are using words that they cannot process. At the end of the day, they will spend much time Googling the words you use than actually listening to what you have to say. So the people or the person that you're communicating with matters. Then the E in there is the ends meet, what you seek to achieve at the end of the day. What do I want to achieve when I'm done speaking? The ends meet is very, very important. If I'm communicating something to you, and at the end of the day, you receive it in a certain way. I understand people have different perspective when it comes to receiving messages, but then at the end of the day, what you want to achieve must be realized. So the ends meet matter. Then A is the actions. And there are certain actions you cannot do in certain places. There are certain things you cannot do with your hand. And my brother from Nigeria would admit that, there are certain people when you're speaking to, you can't have your hands in your pocket. All of these things, based on our culture and our setting, you must have these things at the back of your mind because there are certain rules you need to obey. Okay, then the key refers to the key or the tone with which you used to speak. So how you say something would go a long way to add up to how somebody else will receive it based on the key or the tone you use while speaking. This is why I always say that public speaking is an art.
Thank you. I will get back to Weta, but before then, let me ask Fatima, are there specific procedures to follow? Are there laid down rules that one needs to follow to become an effective public speaker?
I think I will agree with everything Smart said, because he delved into the basics when it comes to public speaking in terms of the wrongs and the rights, which is really very important. And this every public speaker or someone that wants to be a public speaker should know, because without these basics, you might not be able to be the public speaker. So I think as an individual that wants to, do public speaking, and also an individual that is already a public speaker, this should be your tea, like the tea or the meds you're supposed to take every day. And this is something you have to go with wherever you go or when you're preparing for sessions. Because without this basics, you won't be able to deliver to the people, your audience. So there are rules, of course, and some of these rules, or I think guidance that come, because when in terms of relating to the public, there are specific rules, and in terms when it comes to sharing, of course, something with the audience, you have rules that follows. And as a public speaker, there are people that have the skills that are gifted as public speakers, but there are people, who are trained to be public speakers, because they might not have the skills, but they're still interested to be public speakers. So there are procedures you have to go through. You don't just wake up to be a public speaker. Like I will give an example of myself. I am an introvert, and it used to be very tough for me. I started, practicing public speaking when I started advocacy. It used to be very hard for me to stand in front of a crowd or an audience to share whatever I want to share with them. It gets me trembling when I started and all of those things. But I went through mentorship, and I had people that were coaching me to teach me the basics of public speaking. And some of these rules or basics can be preparing yourself first. You really have to prepare yourself. You really have to understand the concept of public speaking and the do's and don'ts of a public speaker. Because like the example Smart gave, you cannot go into a crowd or you sit in front of a crowd and be leaning on your chair while giving a speech. It is wrong because you will not be able to connect directly with the audience. And also, you cannot be in a certain audience where, for example, you're talking to children, people that are under 18, and you're using certain words that they cannot relate to. You have to relate to the audience that you have. Because if you are in a space where you have, for example, survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, there are certain words you should be careful to use because most of those words might be triggers, trauma triggers for some of these people. So in every space, you have to know the context and the type of language or like the dynamic in the space for you to be able to relate and also connect directly with the audience. Then you're communicating and also you are sending your message correctly and they're receiving the message correctly, which also helps them, to share that information. It might not be perfectly accurate, but they're going to send the information that you want to be had.
Thank you, Fatima. Like I was rolling through and I came across what is termed as the 7 P's in public speaking. And I'm speaking with you now, Weata. The issue of punctuation, the pace in the speech, pause in case you pause within certain time of your speech, the punching level of your speech, how you speak in terms of punching, the power you use in that, the passion that you exert while maybe on the podium or rather speaking that passion. We'll also say maybe the body language and your posture as well. How would you consider that in public speaking?
Okay, so I think the 7 P's in public speaking, the pronunciation, pace, pause, punch, power, passion, and posture, they're all a fundamental blueprint when it comes to public speaking. It should be used in every kind of public speaking. Because first of all, you're communicating to an audience, you have to be clear and concise. Hence comes your pronunciation. You need to be able to pronounce words clearly so that you can better put out what you want to say, so that your audience can better understand what you have to say, because your pronunciation has to be very on point. And that's one of the issues that we actually face here in Liberia when it comes to our speaking. There are certain ways that we pronounce certain words, and sometimes when other people they are listening to us, they don't really get what we're saying clearly because of the way we pronounce words. And in public speaking, most of the time it's advisable to not stay in just one area. It is good to pace around to be able to connect to the audience. Left, right, front, center, what you're pacing also helps you to connect to what you want to say. It helps your mind to flow. It helps you to basically connect to your audience. And also the power. You have to have power in what you want to say. You cannot be saying something and then you don't have that control over what you are saying, because you're trying to persuade an audience, you're trying to pass an information. So you have to have power on what you are saying. You have to really be on top of what you are saying. And also pause. You have your speech, all right? Your speech is divided in various segments and you know how you want to put out your speech. So it is good that when you say certain things, you give a pause. Probably maybe because sometimes in between your speech, people want to ask questions, especially if it's a conversational, talk that you are having.
Can I add, like, even when you are speaking, at a certain point, the audience is cheering you, people clapping, people are standing at that moment.
Right. So you need a pause. And also, punch and pause, they're actually interrelated. Because sometimes, the proper use of punch can actually help people to communicate more efficiently with the person that's giving the speech as well. And passion, you need to have passion in what you are doing. For me, I'm a media personality, and I cannot take a job. Maybe somebody tell me, say, oh, you need to come and speak on something that's doctor or medically related. It is not my area. I do not have passion for being a doctor. I do not have passion for being a nurse or anything medically related. I have passion for the media. So when I'm called to talk about anything that's in relation to the media, you are going to know that, okay, I'm on top of my game because I have the passion for what I want to say, because I have the passion for what I'm about to say. So I think they are all major aspects when it comes to public speaking. It can be used in every aspect of public speaking.
All right. What's about you, Chinedu? How do you consider these 7 Ps?
Well, to be honest, I've seen 8 Ps, 4 Ps. The reality of the situation is because when I started public speaking, I didn't know anything about any of these principles. All I knew was that I watched a lot of people I looked up to give their speech. So I watched their composure, I watched their confidence, I watched their ability to control the crowd, I watched their ability to relate with the crowd, or better yet, have the crowd relate with them. So as much as all these things are really good, I'm a big believer in practice until you get better, and practice with feedback. How does that work? It's really simple. The first time you do it, you're going to suck, right? You're going to make mistakes. Your setting wasn't good. Your audience, you didn't prepare well enough to actually provide value to the people. You didn't understand your audience well enough. You didn't pass across, as Smart had mentioned, your call to action, which is your ends meet, the goal with which you want to actually achieve in this particular public speaking. But it can all be solved by practice. The more you practice, the more you understand, you give yourself feedback, and you improve. It's always been approached on public speaking. The real thing about these kinds of practice is that when you're doing it right, you know why, because you have all these principles, and because I heard Weta talk about this, and I also heard Smart talk about this, and you can see similarities. They are not called the same thing. They don't have the same names. They are talking about different things, but each practice have similarities. So when you're doing it right, you know you're doing it right. It cuts across all kinds of principles, whether 8 Ps, 7 Ps, or 4 Ps.
Now, before I cross over, let me ask you about the choice of topics for an audience. How does a speaker know what topic is going to interest his or her audience?
That's a very interesting question, and a smart one too. Well, really, it comes down to one thing. You got to ask your audience. You have to ask your audience. Now, it can be as simple as having other people do it for you. It can be as simple as doing it yourself. It can be as simple as conducting an exercise where people participate and you get certain answers to certain questions, but you have to go directly for the source. The source will provide you the biggest. Now, you can do all kinds of research you want by asking third-party individuals and all that, but the best source of information for you to be able to provide a topic, come up with a topic, find an angle, just practice all these things that we talked about confidently. The best source of information is your audience.
And Smart, you've been through this public speaking, as you stated earlier. What can you say about making the right choice of topic that will interest the audience?
Thank you. I think that there's always a disconnect when people want to speak to a group of people. Picking the right topic or right subject shouldn't come from you, the person. And most times when I say this, a lot of people do disagree. But the truth of the matter is, if you want to be good at what you do, you might just have to adopt the strategy of my sister from Liberia. I don't remember the name, but
it's Makiva, Rosemary Makiva.
Makiva. So when you are standing in front of people and you're not passionate about the topic, or you do not understand the topic, it's easy for people to tell that you are not on top of the issue. Okay? My brother Chinedu from Nigeria spoke about sales. I am not a salesperson. If you put me in the sales area, you are asking me to close a deal for you in terms of negotiations. But I am not a salesperson. I'm not designed to do sales. All right? However, he may be very good at sales because he has studied the rudiments of sales, and he can actually sell, an insecticide to a mosquito mosquito for the mosquito to bite. And that is his area. You understand me? There are topics that when you invite me as a speaker, I will quickly turn it down. There are a lot of times people have invited me to speak on topics because they have seen me speaking passionately about certain subjects related to the youth. If you call me to speak on certain things and I know that, one, I don't have enough knowledge, two, I don't have the experience, three, I have not done a lot of research into that area, I would confidently turn it down. Why? Because as a speaker, I do not read it as you delivering a message as a public speaker. That is not how I look at public speaking. I look at public speaking as the person in front of me is an authority in the space. Therefore, they have the power to persuade and to empower people. So if somebody is standing in front of me and they are given the wrong knowledge, my first question is, who is taking this message home to go and practice it? So I wouldn't accept any topic if I'm not good at it. If I'm picking a topic, it must be something that I'm passionate about. It must be something that I do understand. It must be something that I feel other people have spoken about it yet have not touched on the area that I would like to add my voice to. So it's very important that the public speaker must know their space and know what they can speak on. And also not think that it's pride. No. Sit down if you know that the subject is not in your area.
Okay.
People will respect you because you have carved a niche for a particular, sector.
Before we take a break, let's listen to the two female panelists as well, beginning with you, Fatima. And I know you also want to talk about the choice of topic for the audience, you and Rosemary. But then you could just add on to whether or not a person who is an introvert can be a good public speaker.
Thank you very much. I would say yes. I think a person who is an introvert can be a very good public speaker, because especially if this person is a very fast learner, because most of those people normally take their time when they're learning and they watch things taking their time. So in practicing, and also having a mentor that is going to coach you in your journey as a public speaker, or if it's a career for you, of course, you can be a very good public speaker. Because if you're able to listen, you're able to relate, and you're able to build on confidence. Because most of the time, people that are introverts, they hardly socialize, and they will hardly want to share whatever they have, but also they hardly will speak, even though they know about the particular topic that is being discussed. But with coaching, like I said, and also having someone that mentors you and the do's and don'ts of public speaking, it is step by step.
All right. And to you, Rosemary?
Yeah, thank you, Augustine. I would say introverts can definitely be public speaker. I like to refer to myself as an introverted extrovert. I know there's a big word for that. Yes, because
I think it's called ambivert.
Ambivert. Yeah. So I am an introvert in certain spaces and an extrovert in certain spaces. So when I first started the media, I started with the radio. So I was so used to, just letting my voice being heard and not my face being seen. So when I started, people started asking me, can you come and speak to this event? Can you come and speak to that event? I'm like, wow, that's a big thing. I mean, to sit on the radio and talk, that's a whole other ballgame. But to go and stand before a group of people to give a speech, that's another thing. Because when I'm on the radio, I am being hidden. Nobody's seeing me. It's just my voice that's going out. But then now I'm going to stand before a crowd. I mean, there are thousands of eyes that are going to be on me. And if I'm going to say anything that makes sense, they're going to take it. If I'm going to say something that doesn't make sense, they're going to take it. And then they're going to go out there and say, okay, it is this person that said it. So introverts, most times, they possess strengths such as deep thinking, strong listening skills, and also the ability to connect to people. So they have very, very strong listening skills because they don't want to, mingle much. They don't want to go in this space much, but they tend to listen and they tend to connect to people. Once they get comfortable with you. And the thing about public speaking, it can actually be learned, right? Just by watching somebody and just seeing this person and say, okay, I really want to be like that person, even though I have a fear of crowd right now. I think with more practices, I can be that person. One of the tricks I used when I was starting to get into public speaking was most times reading my speeches in a mirror, just stand in front of a mirror and just look at myself and this is something that I usually used to do. I don't know if it's going to sound vulgar, but I usually do it when I'm naked. So I don't do it when I have clothes on. It helps me to boost my confidence, to look in the mirror, look at myself, stack naked, and then just read my speech and then just do it like I'm going to do when I'm out there looking at a bunch of people. Because if I can do this before myself, looking this way, and 1,000 people with clothes on, I think I can do it. So public speaking can actually be learned. You can actually learn it if you want to learn it, if you put your mind to it that, okay, I want to learn this thing because I want to go out there and I want my voice to be heard. I want to persuade people. I want to pass out this information. So an introvert can definitely become even one of the best public speakers.
So far, we have shared our respective thoughts about public speaking, some specific procedures or steps in presenting a speech to the public, their importance, among other key points. We are now taking a break to refresh ourselves with this song titled Keep On Trying by deceased Liberian artist Moses Soiree featuring Nasiman. Deceased Liberian artist Moses Soiree featuring Nasiman on the song Keep On Trying. Welcome back to Take the Lead on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. And we are still discussing public speaking. We are now resuming the conversation with the panelists providing assessment of young people's involvement with public speaking in their respective countries. Let's begin with you, Chinedu.
Now, I can't tell for a lot of people, but I can be subjective about it. And my interest in public speaking, thanks to the likes of Vusi from South Africa, I can't pronounce his last name very correctly, so I'll stop myself from butchering it. But I think for a lot of people, we need motive to do things. And when it comes to things like public speaking, it's uncomfortable. So when it comes to that kind of putting yourself out there, you need a motive. You need a reason. You don't just wake up and say, oh, I just want to be a public speaker, and all that. But having seen the much impact that public speaking has made in our society and the kinds of influence that people with such control of the public speaking art, as Smart put it, and it's like for myself, I can speak again subjectively. One of the biggest things that drove me as a youngling into public speaking, despite being introverted, was the fact that I knew I had a message. I knew I had things to say. I needed to work on my confidence. I knew there were changes that needed to be done. And now these are all motivations. These are all changes that we want to accomplish for ourselves.
All right. What's about you, Smart? Your own assessment. One would say African youths are now mostly interested in public speaking. What do you say about that?
I would like to add to what my brother Chinedu was saying, especially because when you take a look at the African culture, I would say that we practice, I wouldn't say for every other country. I'm going to speak specifically to Ghana because I don't know how people are raised in other West African countries, but the rest of the panel team can chip in if they think what I'm saying is wrong. In Africa, we practice the high power distance culture. And with a high power distance culture, you don't speak back to your leaders. You don't speak back to your elders. It's difficult for you to get your point across at the infantile stage. So you grow up shutting up. And so the confidence must be an intentional approach towards speaking up. So a lot of young people in Africa, when they see people speaking boldly, they are enthused by the idea. But then, based on the setting and where they find themselves, it's very difficult for them to put their points across. So some of them become timid, they become coiled up, and they do not even see the essence of public speaking until later. where they find themselves in a job where they need to be doing presentations. And you see it in a subtle way where you attend a wedding, somebody is asked to give vote of thanks and they are shying away from just giving a vote of thanks. Or even you find yourself in church and someone is asked to give the opening prayer and they're shying away from very, very little things like this. So they grew up maybe midway through tertiary. They are now asking questions about public speaking. And some of them initially would say, oh, I'm an introvert. I don't speak. There's a lady that I work with in one of my master classes. This lady used to say that, I can't speak in front of. If you see what the lady is doing today, you'll be amazed. She's actually taking over her space.
Okay.
Her confidence is built. She's able to express herself. She's on this platform, that platform every day, and she's so grateful. So I think that it's a very difficult path to navigate, primarily because of our culture where, people are raised in a way that they are not asked to speak, boldly in front of, a lot of people. You are with your parents, a visitor comes in, you are supposed to shut up and be there. Even though you disagree with most of the things that are being said, an older person is expressing an opinion about a practice in society, and you know very well that this is a lie, or if you don't want to call it a lie, this is far from the truth. But you cannot challenge that older person because we practice a high power distance cultures.
Thank you. Rosemary, could you provide your own assessment?
Yes, sure, because this is where I had my education and this is the environment I'm used to. So I may agree with the two gentlemen because in Liberia, there are some kids or some adults or some young adults who have issue with venturing into public speaking. But here, on a larger scale, the youth here, they are more into public speaking, especially when it comes to politics. We have more youth now that are venturing into politics, so they are really free to speak their mind. They are free to go on any radio station and just say what they want to say. They are free to get on social media and put down their phone, press record, and just say what they want to say. The youth in my country here, majority of them, they have the free will to send their points across, and they are not afraid to do so. They are really, really into public speaking. We have more of these youths, even in the UN, that are going for these National Youth Assembly, and most of the time they have these bigger roles where they have to put their points across, and they are not afraid to do so. So in Liberia, it's on a larger scale that youths are actually into public speaking. They are actually putting their points across. When I go to these schools or to these youth gatherings to speak there, I see these young people that are actually speaking. Sometimes when I'm speaking, they are even going back and forth with me on the topic. So I think for us here, we are venturing more into this. And I think it's more because of the politics. Our politics, it has a lot of young people that's, if this person is for this party, this person is for this party, they come online and they are just bashing each other and just talking about their political sides. So for Liberia, I think we are more into public speaking.
Thank you so much. So can we hear from you, Fatima, and then we take your respective recommendations?
So I want to relate with my country. I think it's similar when it comes to public speaking. A lot of young people are engaged in public speaking, especially those that are in the advocacy space and those that are also in school clubs. Most of them are interested in public speaking. But also when it comes to learning, there are people that are not willing to learn. That I will focus on my context in my country. There are young people that are inspired with what other people are doing, and they will want to be like them, but they are not willing to do extensive research to get to where those people are or where they started. Because you cannot speak without having enough knowledge of whatever you want to deliberate on. So that is lacking, in my context.
All right, let's conclude this wonderful conversation with your respective recommendations. And we begin with you, Chinedu.
My recommendation to whatever organization, whatever institution that genuinely wants to make society better, it's imperative that people learn how to speak up and speak up in an articulate and well communicated manner. And that's where public speaking as an art, again, as Smart said, that's where it comes in.
Thank you. Let's hear from you, Smart.
It's quite interesting that my brother Chinedu had to end on that note, because I was actually going to hit on that side of the point that our sister from Liberia mentioned. I think that as Africans, you can hit hard and hit professionally. It is possible. And you can also speak, vent, and be loud, and nobody will pay attention to you. So my advice is, let us not be happy that we have several platforms today, be it TikTok, be it Facebook, be it Instagram. Let's not applaud ourselves that we can go on Instagram Live and speak our mind. Let us ask ourselves, whose attention are we getting with the messages that we have? So public speaking must stay. Let me just shoot my shot in a very big and wild vision. It should actually be part of our curriculum from maybe level 1, level 2. It should be part before we even get to class 6.
Thank you, Smart. And to you, Fatima?
Thank you very much. Some of the important recommendations for me will be to make sure we also put our government to task to understand that public speaking is very important and they have to be part of our school curriculums. And also the schools should make public speaking be a priority. But also the young people that are upcoming, those that want to venture into public speaking or that are already into public speaking, should be willing to learn, make enough research, relate to their topics, and also be ready to accept coaching and mentorship to be able to communicate and to be able to address issues that affects us in our society.
Well, we've come to the end of this edition of Take the Lead on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal. Many thanks to you, dear listeners, for joining the discussion on public speaking. Remember to take the lead in shaping the discourse for the betterment of young people in Africa. I am Augustine Cully. Goodbye.
We thank you for listening to this program in Nigeria on Darling FM 107.3 Owerri, Southeast. We thank our listeners in Liberia on Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Nova County, Kwakete Radio 100.9 FM, Barga, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riversest. In Sierra Leone, we thank our listeners on African Young Voices, Freetown, Radio Bath 91.3 FM. In Ghana, Radio Pod, Savannah Region, Reals FM 104.7 Wenchi. In the Gambia on Numi FM 94.0 North Bank Region, Radio Veritas 102.9 FM The Gambia.